As European politicians go back to school after the summer break, I'm talking to MEP Marta Andreasen, who used to be the European Commission's chief accountant. With the Eurozone crisis rumbling on, we're talking about her predictions for the challenges that face the European Union in the next season. Marta Andreasen, thanks very much for talking to us today. Now, EU leaders had been bracing themselves for a market panic over the summer, but that never really happened. Does that mean that financially we're now out of the woods?
Well, I think what's happening is that people are still, and markets are still awaiting for the outcome this Thursday of the policy of the board that deals with policy in the European Central Bank. And there's also the decision of the German court about the stability mechanism. So I think it's too early to say if we are out of the woods. I think we have a long way ahead to be out of the woods, if we ever are. But I think that today, it's too early.
Do you feel then that the euro as a single currency is still under threat?
Yes, for me it's deeply under threat. What will come out of these meetings that I have mentioned is probably a way to sort out the most immediate problem, which is the fact that Italy and Spain are having to borrow at very high interest rates. But the essence is that the economy is not growing. The essence is that unemployment is growing. Part of this bailout is going to banks that are in very bad shape, namely in Spain. Now, in my view, those banks should be closed. Those bailouts are a waste of money.
Let's take some of those issues separately then. You mentioned that a German court is going to decide on the legality of the fiscal pact for Germany. What will the court's decision be in your view?
I think the Germans will be sort of forced to agree to this, not the pact in itself, but the fund, the stability fund, which is going to bail out all the member states that are in trouble. And I think they're going to agree. Now, the issue with this fund is that it has very important ties to austerity measures. And then, it is left to the interpretation of the different member states, what they interpreted as austerity measures.
But at the end of the day, austerity has become a dirty word, particularly in, say, Ireland and Greece. And bailouts amongst the people of Germany are deeply unpopular, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Olli Rehn made an article in the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago, and he was showing Ireland precisely as an example of how they're coming out of the crisis. Well, I told him yesterday, have you spoken to the Irish people? That's the issue, They speak at high level with the prime ministers and the government officials, but the people who are suffering the austerity measures are the people in the street. And nobody is talking to these people. I have spoken to Irish people, and they are very uncomfortable with the measures.
How likely do you think it is that the European Central Bank will ride once again to the rescue, and how long are they going to be able to keep on doing that for?
Draghi sort of hinted, I would say, to the fact that he would find it legal, according to the treaties, for the European Central Bank to buy bonds from the government on the secondary market. So this would sort of give some air to the member states in that, they would be able to get financing at a lower cost. But on the other side, this means printing money.
So the feeling then is that the ECB could buy these sovereign bonds, but if it does it, it will impose tougher conditions, i.e. austerity on the countries, and the countries don't want to agree to that, right?
Yeah. But it seems that if the ECB buys the bonds, the tie to the austerity measures is more vague than it is if actually the fund, the stability fund, is used to finance these member states in trouble. I mean, all these mechanisms are fairly new, and I think the legality of this, the legal framework has not been well thought.
And it seems from what you're saying that everyone is in the dark almost, that there are these quite complicated measures going on which are perceived differently by different countries depending on their economic position.
In Spain, for example, they are trying to force the Prime Minister to actually ask for the bailout. Now, there's a total confusion because before the summer, supposedly Spain got a bailout for its banks. And now it seems it's going to ask for another bailout to save its own economy. It's not clear if the bailout of the banks was subject to the austerity measures or not. There's a memorandum of understanding still to be signed. And there's a complete confusion. But at the end of the day, this is, again, money that's going to have to be printed. This money doesn't actually exist.
This doesn't sound like an economic bloc that's working its way out of a crisis in a coherent fashion.
No. Well, for me, it's no surprise. I was in the Commission, and actually the people in the Commission live in their ivory tower. They don't actually understand what the issue is with the economy in the European Union. And we are where we are because of the lack of discipline of the member states, but very much also because of the lack of control of the European Commission on the policies that they have put out. This crisis is, to a certain extent, or to a large extent, the result of the good or bad policies that they put in place. But they don't assume any responsibility.
Angela Merkel, the German Chancellor, has just come back from a trip to China where she tried to restore the confidence of Chinese investors in Europe. How attractive do you think European assets are at the moment to nations like the Chinese?
The European Union, the European Parliament even, have legislated in a way that they have opened our markets totally to the Chinese and other markets, other investors. And right now, they have an easy ride, really. But this is a problem for us because our industry has ceased to grow because, these people are invading our markets. So China, for me, is not the solution. The solution for us in Europe is enhancing our industry, growing our industries, and getting people employed.
So that's the price that European countries might pay for Chinese investment, basically?
Yes. I mean, if I had to decide, I wouldn't be very happy about Chinese investment. Obviously, in times of crisis, you have to do the best you can. But, I mean, China, for us, does not represent a big opportunity. I think we represent more an opportunity for them than they do for us.
Other countries, Bulgaria has just frozen its plans to join the Eurozone. It does remain a member of the EU, though. What advantages do you think Bulgaria gets by being a part of the European Union but not a part of the Eurozone?
Well, it gets the funding. There is this issue about the structural funding because all these newcomers into the European Union are now getting the big bulk of the funding, whereas the old ones like Greece and Spain and Italy and France and the UK obviously are getting less. So I think the Bulgarians have been very clever. I mean, they are getting out of the euro problem, but still they remain as big, important recipients of structural funding.
Of all the issues that we've talked about, now that the European Union has gone sort of back to school, what will you be focusing on? What's your major concern?
Well, obviously, major concern is, from an economic point of view, is what are they proposing to create employment? And I haven't heard good ideas in this regard. From a budget point of view, I think the European Union budget should be reduced. We have invested more than 150 billion in the last year, and in the decade an average of 130. And what have we got? We got to the crisis.
The ratings agency Moody's has revised its outlook for the European Union's debt rating to negative. What does that mean for investors in European countries and also in the euro?
Well, it's bad news, obviously, for European countries, for the Eurozone as a whole. I mean, credit rating agencies are part of the problem or part of the solution, because obviously they take certain parameters and they are, of course, in a way, with the rating forcing, the interest rates to go up. So this is a problem that I really don't know how it's going to be solved. The European Union wants to have centralized this, but everything they centralize doesn't work afterwards. I think it's very bad news, and it's showing that, for me, the euro has a short life ahead.
Marta Andreasen, thank you very much.
Thank you.